couple minutes delay there in getting started. So thank you everybody for coming out to the Getting Started with Google Search Ads webinar. Some of you probably joined us for the Facebook and Instagram one a couple weeks ago, and thanks for helping work out the kinks. I think I've figured out the chat issue. So last time I had a little bit of difficulty seeing your questions, and I think I've got that fixed up this time. So if you're viewing this on YouTube, of course, then you should see a chat option right there on the screen. I'm holding my tablet beside me so that I can see it that way, and I will type right back to you there, or just speak it out loud so people can hear it. This is going to be, it's about 70 slides, so it's going to be a full hour, I think. I hope it covers off any introductory questions you might have when it comes to Google search ads and using Google AdWords. You're going to see some things we're not going to talk about today. Stuff like YouTube ads and display ads and things like that that are purchased within Google AdWords. And hopefully down the road, we'll have an opportunity with the York Region Small Business Enterprise Center to speak about some more advanced techniques when it comes to Google search and YouTube and so forth. But for today, this is an introductory level webinar. So I hope for those of you who don't have a lot of experience with Google search ads, this will answer a lot of your questions. So I think I will just dive right in. And as people join a little bit late, of course, everybody will receive this presentation afterwards. I'll email it out shortly after this, this webinar concludes. Pardon me. And it will be viewable on this same YouTube channel forever. So you'll see that the Facebook and Instagram ad one is there now, and I'll just have this saved up at that point. So let's get started. Thanks again for joining. Here's the agenda for today. So again, we're going to have the four first things to know, stuff that we want you to know right off the bat before you even get started with your ad campaign. Number 2, preparing for success. Number 3, getting going on AdWords. Number 4, finding keywords. That'll be a key one for you all. Number 5, creating and analyzing your ad. And number 6, a little bit on grading and how to optimize some certain things with your ad. And that's where we'll carry it through today. So the first thing, what am I trying to do? You're going to need to pick one of 3 main objectives you're attempting to achieve with your ad. And this obviously is dependent on the type of business you have and the type of product or service you offer. Number 1 is website visits. So if you have a website, you're trying to get more visitors to arrive at it or specific pages within your website. Number 2, you might be a business that would rather have people call in. And that's an option within AdWords. Number 3, store visits, getting more customers to arrive at literally the front door of your business. So all 3 of these are options. By far, most people are going to be picking number 1, at least today, but do know that the other options are there. Number 2, who is my audience? So location and keywords are traditionally the 2 ways you'll be targeting people. So where are they? And what are they searching for? There is also something called retargeting, which allows us to say, if somebody has converted through our ad before, so if they've been to the store, they've called us in the past, or they've been to the website in the past, there is a way to reach them with additional messaging later, but we're not really going to talk about that today. We're going to focus in on the fact that most of you are probably trying to find people within a specific geographic area. That could be as small as a postal code within a city, could be as large as a country, and we'll talk through that today. And the second one is really the keywords that they're searching for. So I promised a slide like this. Where should my ad appear? Getting started as we are, our ads will appear when someone makes a search on Google. But once you get familiar with using AdWords and you've got your account set up, this does open up other options for you, like banner advertising, YouTube advertising, and even off-platform advertising, meaning ads off of Google on their search partner websites. All 4 of these are options. We're going to focus in on that first one today. And finally, how much am I willing to spend? So don't ask how much does it cost to advertise on Google, because the truth is you can likely spend as much or as little as you're willing to. So while starting out, just set a daily budget that you're comfortable with, and we're going to go through how that works and monitor those results. And you're going to know when it's time to turn it up a little bit when you start seeing results, people visiting your site, or people walking in the front door saying that they found you through a Google search. Okay. Preparing for success. So this presentation, like the last one, it's really set up to be a bit of a guide to take you step by step from, I don't know anything about Google AdWords right through to I've got my ad live, I'm checking it, and I'm going to make these changes. So do not try to follow along today because we're going a little bit quick. but do take this presentation afterwards. It'll come to your email or just come back to the website at loyalorder.com, and you'll be able to download it and go step by step through. So the first thing you're going to do is sign up for an account. So you're going to do that by going to adwords.google.com, or of course you can search Google AdWords. You'll find an ad there for them. Click Start Now, and the directions are fairly well guided. One thing to note, you're going to be starting on what's called the AdWords Express product. For most of you, that might be fine. You may want to stick with that. Today's presentation is really about moving yourself to the full AdWords platform, and we'll show you how that works. So the very first thing Google's going to ask you to do is the very first thing I asked you to do. That is select your goal. So what are you trying to accomplish with this ad? Now, don't worry. You can run ads against any goal once you're set up. So you're not really locking yourself into a decision. You're just making your first ad. So if you are a retail store, you may want people to come to your website. You may also want them to call you, and you may also want them to visit your storefront. And you will be able to make ads for all three. But for now, we're going to make one single ad. So as you're going through this the first time, think about the one ad that you really want to do, and we'll start there. And then, as promised, the second thing that Google's going to ask you to do is pick the residents of the people that you're after. So if you're a physical store, you may go broadly, you may go into a specific area. So I'm doing this presentation today from Newmarket. So if I was at Yonge and Mulock, then I might zoom right in, pick a couple postal codes or just a city and say that's who I want to go after. But if you're a larger company or somebody who sells online and you sell nationally, then you could pick Canada. So there are a few options. As you can see on the right-hand side, those potential audience size numbers will change as you go and give you some guidance on the number of people that you have access to. Now, the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to ask you to define your product and service, and you can really only pick one. So Google's going to suggest some options that they think are probably right for you, and you can pick if that's true. And that's the first, so what language do you advertise in is the first piece. It's the what product or service do you want to promote in this ad. So you may be doing an ad for a specific product of yours. So this wouldn't necessarily have to be your entire company. It's just what this ad is actually focusing on. Now, when you see underneath show your ad to people looking for, you have more options. You're not stuck to just one because you may have a broader audience for that one product or service that you're offering. You can pick more and you can add another using that add another option. And that's when you're going to get into the fun part, right? Now you're going to write your first ad. And as you write it on the screen, you're going to see it start to appear in that ad preview on the right side. Now, here's the fun part is creating your ad. The not so fun part is that each of these options, headline 1 and 2 and description, have pretty strict character limits, meaning the amount of text that you can have in that field. And what you're going to find when you first kick off with this is that you're going to want to type a lot more than the space is going to hold. And I'm going to complicate that a little bit by just saying you really want the keywords that you're trying to appear for to be found within the headline and description as well. So play with this section. There is no necessarily right or wrong. Even the experts in this field still play and tweak and run different types of ads and tests and see what they're going on. Nobody really knows that any kind of secret sauce to how to write an ad this way. So play with it a bit. Do your best, try multiple ads, and just keep playing till you see something that you think is pretty compelling, something that sounds like something you'd want to click on, and that also really does speak to the product or service that you are offering. So in this case, we're talking about a podcast, and we're trying to find a way to get people to know what it's about and to kind of instigate them into clicking. And then Google's going to ask for your budget. Now, it's going to average it per day. So you're seeing on the screen that $12.83 per day average, and you're able to move that down. I believe the lowest currently is $2.30 a day, and you can move that up pretty high if you want. Now, as you're looking on the screen, you can also see a couple other options. Number one, typical competitor budget range. So it's telling you that for other people in the space that you're making an ad for, this is what they're typically spending per day. And you can go lower than that if you want to. There's no problem with that, especially when you're starting out. You can kind of fit yourself right in the middle like we have on the screen here, or you could go higher if you wanted to. As you're moving things around, changing the budgets out, you're going to see that estimated performance on the right. That's going to tell you that if you were to spend $12.83 per day average, you would probably per month get between 960 and 1,600 views of your ad. and about 300 to 485 clicks. As you move your sliders around and you change your budget numbers, those will change. And just find an area where budgetarily you are comfortable, but also that you think the results would be beneficial to your business. All right, this is the part where everybody panics. That's why I put don't panic. You're going to need to provide a credit card before you can continue because you are building a live ad. There is a way for us to turn it off. So don't panic too much. You are going to need to provide payment options if you're going to run Google AdWords. So go ahead, enter all of this now. There's really no risk. Hit apply, and you're going to see this screen here. So yeah, your ad will be reviewed within 24 hours. It's typically far quicker than that before it'll be reviewed. If it's declined for any reason, that can be punctuation, it can be spelling, it could be using words that they don't like. I think there's a few of them and I didn't write them down today, but they will tell you. So when you log back in, you'll probably get an email as well that say, we've declined your ad for this reason. It doesn't happen very much. Most likely you'll just see it go live, and we'll go through what that looks like. All right. If you click through the next screen, you're going to see this. Now, I promised you that you could freeze your ad because you may not have wanted to go live right away. So you can see on the bottom left of the image here, active. Click on that little blue circle. It's going to take that to an inactive white circle, and you'll be ready. You'll have to answer a bit of a survey asking you why you froze your campaign. Go ahead and answer it truthfully, and then we can start playing with our ads. Now, you could exist forever and play with this option and use Google AdWords Express, which is a bit more of a self-serve option, and you'd probably do fine. But today I really wanted to push you into AdWords because you have a bit more control. It's a little easier to use, and you'll, over time, if you want to get into YouTube advertising, things like that, it's going to be much easier for you. So you're going to see an option on the screen to switch to AdWords. Understand one main detail about this. The moment you click switch to AdWords, you can never go back to AdWords Express. So make sure you're comfortable before you make that switch. This presentation is all about AdWords and not AdWords Express. So if you're someone that doesn't necessarily want more control, then it would be important to stick with AdWords Express until you've developed a level of comfort there. But for the sake of today, we're going to assume that you switch to AdWords, and we're going to go through that. So I'm looking down and I see the first question. Is there a period required for purchase, or we define if the campaign is per day, per week, or per month? So we'll go through that in a bit more in a second, Claudia. But you can definitely, typically it's per day, but it will show you what that translates to per month. So if I pop back really quick here, you'll see that even when we picked $12.83 per day, it listed to us that we would expect to pay $390 per month. There is also an option as we go through, put end dates on these things, and that way you're able to say, I only want to spend these $2.50 a day for the next 6 days, and it'll stop you from spending over your budget. So Sam, is the cost for AdWords higher than Express? No, it's the exact same product. It's just you have more control over AdWords, more, better reporting, better ability to kind of control the entire piece as you go through. You'll see in a minute how detailed we can get into things. And I just find that AdWords, once you get used to it, there's a bit of a learning curve, but I think you'll find that it's much better to use. Okay, this is probably why many of you signed up for today, because we want to go through finding keywords. It is probably the most important piece of your campaign. Obviously, building a compelling ad is really important as well, but knowing what people are actually searching for within the area that you're targeting is really important. But first, we're going to get into a little bit of the theory. There are 5 types of keyword matching. And what that means is that you tell Google that this is my product and this is the keyword I think I'd be found under. This is the keyword I think people will search for. And Google can then trigger the ad to appear when someone searches. But how Google does that changes into 5 different ways that you would need to know before you went in too much further. I'm going to go into more in depth in a second with each of these 5 options. The first, and actually we'll just skip right into them. So the first one is broad match. This is the default match type. This is somebody types in something. And the example we have here is someone types in buy ladies hats, but you've indicated that you want to be found for the keyword women's hats. This would work because these ads show on things that include searches that include misspellings, synonyms, related searches, and any other what Google calls relevant variations. So if somebody searches buy ladies hats, Google knows enough to know, that these are ladies hats. Even though they said women's hats, it's close enough, and your ad may get served up. So I think for most of you, that's good, because it does. In the old days, you were probably trying, if you'd never tried this years ago, you were probably trying to cover off all synonyms and misspellings and related searches. Understand now that if you use broad match, that Google will be able to figure that out for you. So there's something called a broad match modifier. So if you add a plus sign to your keyword when you're entering it into Google AdWords, this ad will show on searches that include modified broad match keywords or close variations, but not synonyms. So what that means is that if somebody searched for hats for women and you had entered plus women's plus hats, that would appear. Even though it's not in the exact same order, it would appear. But hats for ladies, that would not appear. So synonyms, no. Variations, yes. Something called phrase match that you'll probably use a fair amount. By surrounding a keyword in parentheses, or quotation marks, then that match phrase or any really close variations of that phrase with additional words before or after, it will appear for. So in this case, again, this is if somebody has entered the example keyword, quote, women's hats, end quote. So even if somebody searched by women's hats, that would appear. Now, even though the word by is there, it would still appear because we're just part of that search. Now, if we put women's hats and somebody put by ladies hats, would not show up. So that's where the differences between things like broad match and phrase match, it really takes a little bit of thought and strategy to how people search for your stuff. And we're going to go through those keyword checks in a second. Now, you may want to get really, really precise. You may have an exact match, which is ads that may show on searches that match the exact term or are really close variations of that exact term. The close variations here may include a reordering of the words if it doesn't change the meaning, and the addition or removal of function words. So the example we have here, you put bracket women's hats, close brackets, somebody searches hats for women, it's going to be close enough, right? That's going to dive right in. I use this one a lot, and we'll go through some examples later in the presentation that are a bit more precise with it. And then finally, something called negative match. So this is when ads may show on searches that don't include a term. So if you're a hat company, but you don't sell baseball hats, you could add minus baseball hats as a negative keyword so that your ads don't show for people searching for baseball hats. So the example search women's hats, you had a broad match for hats. You add a negative minus baseball hats so that you don't appear. Now, I get that this stuff's a little bit complicated right now, but we wanted to have it here, and I think it'll be helpful for you to review back to. Near the end of the presentation, we'll have some real world examples of how we used this that will hopefully help it make a little bit more sense. Okay, so on the screen now is Google AdWords, and it's going to look an awful lot like this, and you're going to see a wrench in the top right corner. If you click on that, you're going to get a bunch of different options for planning and things called shared libraries. Because this is introductory level, we're not going to go too in-depth on those things, except that very far left option for keyword planner. So once you're up and running, I want you to make use of that. And you just, again, click on that wrench, then mouse over, click on keyword planner, and you're going to get to this screen here, where you have two options. Are you A, looking for new keywords, or B, are you trying to forecast results for keywords that you already have? And in this case, we'll start by saying that we're trying to find some new keywords, so we'll play in that section. Within that field, you have a few options. So in this case, we've added in a web page. So our client here runs a podcast website, but because it's a podcast and the product is a podcast, but each topic of each episode is something entirely different. So because of that, I've taken one page of their website related to one episode and pasted that in because I'm trying to find keywords against that particular single page. Now, if you are a local consultant or you run a restaurant, chances are you don't need to worry about individual pages on your website. you're really all about the one topic, and you can just paste your entire website in there. As you paste, it'll give you the option, but then you can also see we can type in other keywords that we think match. So if we already think we know what keywords may work, we can type a few of them in here and then click Get Started. When we do, there's another option. We've shown something similar to this prior, but keywords do change by region. So people search for different things in different countries and in different cities sometimes. And so if you have a product that is more regionally relevant, then it's highly recommended that you change your location by clicking where you see Locations Canada in this photo, and it'll bring up this map, and you can just start typing in the areas that are more relevant. You can add and remove and just make things so that you are getting keyword research for the area where you sell your product. There are also other options at the top of the screen other than location. So if you were a product or service that was offered in multiple languages, you could change that. There's also an option for search networks where you add in Google search partners. I'm recommending that you don't do that today. You can test it later, but that's where you'd find that option down the road if you were trying to. The only other piece that might be helpful on the right side is that range of dates. So if you have a product that's fairly seasonal and you don't, maybe you run a resort and you don't necessarily want to look at people's searches through the winter months, you can change that. Or if you wanted to make it longer than 12 months, you wanted to see what the last 36 months worth of search data looked like, you can change that as well. Have fun with this, play with it, change the options. You're not doing any damage by looking through and playing with all these different options, and give it a try. And that's kind of usually what I always recommend. As you're getting used to something, really the best way to learn is just to poke on things and see what happens. And over time, those keywords underneath will start to change and they'll show you different options. So here's what a set of keyword results would look like. So we entered that website and that one keyword, and Google came back and said, here's a bunch of relevant keywords we think might be worth placing into your search ad campaign, meaning we think that your ad and your site would be relevant if people searched for these keywords. Now, as we move across to the right, we see average monthly searches. So within the region that we've picked, which in this case was Canada, then for keto, there's between 10,000 and 100,000 average monthly searches. Now, it's obviously a very wide range, but you can see that the ranges do change from like 10 to 100 for a misspelled variation of keto diet to 100 to 1,000 for something like the ketogenic or keto diet plan. 1K to 10K, 10K to 100K, and 100K to 1 million. And I believe you can get 1 million plus on some keywords that you probably wouldn't want to bid against. Where you see the word competition, that means how many other people, other companies are buying search ads against that keyword. So ideally, you don't want to be in a competitive space. You'd rather find a keyword that has low competition and high monthly searches, because you would not be competing as much with other people and subsequently driving up the cost of your search results. So ideally, you are looking for that low. It is possible you might buy against a high competition keyword if it's super, super relevant to what you do. But for the most part, try to aim for those lows or mediums. And then as we move across top of bid page, and there's a low and a high range, this is essentially telling you that if you wanted to appear on the first page of results for Google for that keyword, this is the range that we would expect you'd have to pay. Now, it's a wide range, and you probably wouldn't know where you'd fall till you bought a couple, but it does give you a range that, for example, keto diet plan, 30 cents, that's much higher than the other ones, even on the low end. So you may want to abandon that option because, I'd rather pay 4, 5, 2 cents than 30 cents on the low end, even though some of these get up over $1 per click on the top end range. There's no magic on this slide, right? You are making an analysis and you are making a decision on what you think is going to work best. And eventually we're just going to try some of these and see which ones actually work for us in the real world. So I've got some slides in here for you to review afterwards that go into more in depth on what competition means. Now, let's say you want to choose a keyword. So in this case, you click that white box to the left of the keyword, and you'll see suddenly a blue bar show up on the screen where you're going to be able to add these directly into your AdWords campaign. So we can do this by creating a new ad group. And in a minute, we're going to go through exactly what campaigns, ad groups, and ads are. But again, with all of these things that we're playing with, all of this stuff can be changed later. You don't necessarily have to worry about it. Historically, I've even just saved these separately rather than upload them directly into AdWords. Really, you're using the keyword planner to uncover the keywords that you think are going to work. If you want to try and add it directly into your campaign, this is how you do it. Now, on the left side of the screen, there is an option called Plan Overview. And if you click that, you're going to see something like you see on the screen now. After adding your initial keywords to your plan, by clicking that, you're going to get a quick glance at what Google thinks your results would be at a specific budget. So Google's saying that if you spend, and here's my unfortunate piece. I wish I could have changed these numbers on the screen for you, but I can't. So Google just says that you could get over 9,000 clicks on over 120,000 impressions, and it would cost you a little over $8,000 with a 7.6% click-through rate. Now, for those of you who don't know what a click-through rate is, that is the percentage of people who would click on your ad after seeing it. Meaning, so you want that number to be high. 7.6% would be pretty high. And that would say that if you displayed your ad to 100 people, that a little over 7% of those 100 people would choose to click and go to your site. Now, most of you on this webinar are probably not looking to spend $8,000 a month on some ads. I can't change that number, but it does give you a rough idea, at least, of the volume of traffic that the keywords you've selected have, and that an estimated cost per click to get them. So you're now able to say we saw a range before for a high and a low range. Now we're zeroing in a little bit, saying if we went with all of these keywords, it's probably going to cost us 85 cents every time someone clicks. Now is the time to stop and say, is my product, is a visit to my site or a phone call to my business or somebody walking in the door of my shop worth 85 cents? And if it is, off we go, right? Save to account, download plan, or whatever you think, if you're comfortable with that. If you're not, then it's probably time to go back to keywords and edit them again, take out some of the more competitive ones, and maybe add a couple less competitive ones. To do that, you go back to keyword ideas right above plan overview. And when you go over here, you're back to your screen where you can add and remove some more keywords or URLs. And you can do this back and forth, over and over, back and forth, until you get to a point where you've got a series of keywords and phrases that make sense to you and your business and aren't going to cost you more than you're willing to budget for. All right, so once you've found a new keyword, you want to add it in. It's the same as before. You click that white box, it turns into a blue box. You click add to plan, it goes back into the ad group, and you can just keep doing this back and forth. If you want, again, I didn't go through this today, but you can see on the top right of the image, download keyword ideas. If you click that, you're going to get a spreadsheet dropped onto your hard drive, and you're able to go into that and look with a little bit more detail if that's the type of person you are. It's the type of person I am. So I typically download those keyword ideas and just look at them myself on my computer and then manually enter them later. It depends on what you're into as far as a level of detail you like to go through. All right. You're ready to go, click Save to Account, and this is the screen you're going to see. It's going to ask you to create a brand new campaign, and these keywords would drop into that campaign. And this is to Claudia's previous point. Here's another example again of a daily budget. So most of the time you're going to see Google requesting how much you'd be willing to spend per day, and you'll have to extrapolate that out over a course of a month. Once you've got it all entered, click Save, and off you go. Now, that was the Find New Keywords option, but remember when we go back to the keyword planner, we also had an option for getting metrics and forecasts for your own keywords. So let's say you have a pretty firm idea that there were some keywords that didn't appear during your research, but you think that they are relevant to the product or service that you have. So type them in here, separated by a comma, and click Get Started. And it's going to look a lot like the previous screen, but it's going to show you, here's the keywords you asked for, here's the clicks you can expect per month, here's the impressions you can expect per month, the click-through rate, and the cost. And so you can start seeing that, well, maybe I added a few keywords that really nobody is searching for, so I don't need to add them. But maybe I found one like keto fasting. It has a little bit of traffic, right? 145 impressions, could get another 10 clicks. That's probably worth looking at. Now, those were forecasts where Google's saying this is what we think would happen over the course of the next month. You can click historical metrics and you can see what people have searched for in the past. So versus a prediction of next month, here's a look at the previous time frame, in this case 12 months, that show you the average monthly searches, the competition, and the bid ranges that we saw in the previous slide. So hopefully this stuff's making sense. You're seeing exactly how Google quantifies what a keyword's value is, and you're able to start figuring out if it's worth spending the money for you as well. Now, once you've clicked them all through, you're able to add to plan, save to account, and we did this already, so we're able to go through there. I'm not seeing any more questions on the screen right now. I don't know if anything here is a little bit too complicated, but please do dive in with any questions you have as we go. We're about halfway through, so let's talk about building our first full campaign on our own within Google AdWords. Okay, so what is a campaign? Because I've talked about campaigns and ad groups, and it's important to make sure we understand the difference between them. So a campaign is the top level of all your ads. So it is a set of ad groups. So ad groups have ads, keywords, and bids inside of them. That the difference here being that a campaign has an overarching budget, your daily budget that can have an end date. It has location targeting, and there are some other smaller settings. But this is to essentially mean that a campaign is used to organize categories of products and services that you offer. And that means that if you have the same budget and the same location targeting for your business, then your campaign, you have one campaign for everything. And then you're able to make new ad groups that target different keywords with different ads. So an ad group would look like this. So if we have our podcaster, well, in this case, the podcaster would have general podcast as one ad group. And that means these are just people, they still are interested in clicking and listening to a podcast, but these are people who just are into podcasting. Then he's got a category for just his business name, people who are searching just for the name of the business. And as we go through in a minute, we're going to make an ad group for people who are into the keto diet or people who are into bone broth, and start all of those ramp under one podcast campaign, because it's always the same budget and it's always the same location. But the ad groups can have different keywords and different ads, of course, so that we're driving people to different sections of the website. So if you want to build a campaign, you're going to see a big blue plus sign right on that main AdWords page when you log in. When you click on it, you're going to see an option there for new campaign. And here's the first, or I guess the next complication. So today we're really talking about search. We talked about that, but this is where Google is first going to present to you the fact that, hey, you don't have to just run ads on search. You can run ads on display. That's banners, websites that have third-party websites across the web that have advertising built into them. If you are somebody who has an online shop, so your website people can come to and actually purchase things, you can buy shopping ads that are embedded right into Google. You can buy video ads across the web or on YouTube. And if you have an app, you can use Google's network to drive app installs. Pardon me, sorry. Now, all of these are options and they're all built right within AdWords, and you can certainly play with them. But as noted today, we're really focusing in on that first one. We really want to get you guys familiar with search and comfortable with it. So that's the one we're going to pick. And the next thing it's going to ask you to do is to pick one of those goals. So the goals, again, go back to those first four things at the beginning of the presentation. You always have to have one goal for a campaign. And so that's where things get complicated. We talked a minute ago about the campaign being the overarching group of ad groups that shares a budget and shares location, but it's also going to share a goal. So if you are a store that does online sales and you want website traffic, then you're going to have to set up two different campaigns. One's going to be your online sales campaign, and under that, you might have ad groups for the different ranges of products you offer, but then you'd also have a website traffic campaign, and under that, you'd have ad groups for the different pages on your website that you're trying to drive people to. Hopefully that makes sense, and if it doesn't, just hit me up with some questions and we'll go through it. So in this case, for our podcaster, we're driving website leads across different topics. So we're going to build a website traffic campaign with ad groups that reflect the individual topics the podcaster talks about. Now you're going to be asked this question. Do you want to include Google search partners? Now, if you've been on a site off of Google that had search, and when you used it, it used Google search to present to you results from that site, then you know what we're talking about with this option. Typically, if you pick it, you're going to get more impressions, so your ad's going to get served to more people. Your cost per click is going to go down, so if that's important to you, you may want to use it, but you're also appearing on sites off of Google where people aren't necessarily expecting to find your product. They're not searching for it on Google. They're searching for something else on somebody else's website. So the relevance and the chance that they'll click will go down. Typically, I don't keep that checked. And that's solely because I want to typically be in front of people who are on Google searching for a product. And by not including that, maybe my cost per click is a little bit higher, but I believe that the people who are seeing it and clicking are more relevant to the product and service that I'm offering. You'll also be given a chance to add to the display network. So the display network is a collection of more than 2 million websites, videos, and apps. And if selected, your ads will appear only when they're predicted by Google to be effective and only when you aren't using all your budget on search. That last line is important. So just between us, I typically don't select this either, but that's also because very rarely am I spending all of my budget possibilities on search, meaning we're going to go through later that typically there are so many people searching for so many things on Google that I couldn't possibly have or find the budget to exhaust it. And because of that, I typically don't go using all my budget on search. So again, for the sake of just being making this easy and making an intro level podcast, uncheck include Google search partners, click no on display network, and you're just running a search campaign. Okay, something called budget delivery methods. So we've talked before about the daily budget that they're going to ask you to spend. So in this case, I've said $250, but you're going to see another option here called standard and accelerated. And what does that mean? That if you pick standard, Google is going to present your ads on Google evenly over time. So if you said starting, I want to spend $250 a day, say your average click is 25 cents, Google's going to make sure that you're spending those 25 cents evenly over a 24-hour period. And that's probably fine. Something called accelerated means Google will spend it as quickly as possible and then turn off the taps till the next day. So if for most of you, that might actually be fine because you're hitting pretty relevant traffic right away. Just understand that if your budget is significantly lower than it could be, that your ads may only be live for a couple hours throughout the course of the day. So if it's important for people to see your ad, not necessarily click on it, and you want to be visible more often, stick with standard. And if you don't change anything, it will default to standard. But if you really want to hit relevant traffic quickly and you just want to get those clicks done, then click accelerated. Okay, bidding. So bidding is the most complicated part of Google AdWords, but also Google does offer automated process for this that I would highly suggest you use at the beginning because again, it is pretty tough to get a firm handle on how bidding works. So for the sake of the introduction here, you're running your first set of ads. Leave it set. You can see in the middle of the screen, how do you want to get clicks automatically? Keep that checked. Focusing on clicks for search campaigns, ideal at the start. So there's two things on the screen to focus on. Number one, what do you want to focus on? So you could say you want to buy search ads for impressions, meaning I want as many people as possible to see my ad. I don't necessarily care if they click on it. I have run campaigns like that before, But I'm guessing for most of you here, small businesses within York Region, you probably want people actually making it to your website or making a phone call. And finally, this was, I promised this slide, start and end dates. So as you're building your campaign, you could say you want to spend $250 a day until you stop, and that's where you would leave your end date to none. Or you could put an end date in. I highly recommend for your first few campaigns, you put an end date in, because what you don't want is to forget that you have campaigns live or not be thinking about Google AdWords and then find out later on that you spent way too much. There are 3 other options here called site link extensions, callout extensions, and call extensions. I'm not talking about them today because of the introductory level of this podcast of this this webinar. But feel free, email me, send me questions, Google them if you want to know a bit more about them. They can be powerful. Let's just not talk about them today because I'm sure this is a bit complicated as it is. Okay. You're going to move right into building an ad group. So, and you can build more than one. We'll go through that in a second, but Google's going to suggest some keywords. So it's going to say, okay, you've built this campaign. Now we think we're going to help you build some ad groups so that we can then build some ads. And on the screen, you can see how I've used the different types of keyword matching. We can go through that in a bit, but this is where you would start to enter all those. These are the keywords that you actually want to be found for. All that keyword research we did a couple steps ago, this is where it's going to pay off. And then if you click on new ad group on the same screen, you can actually create multiple ones now. So if you are somebody in York Region who runs a retail store that has significantly different lineups of products, this is how you're going to set it up. So you're going to have your website click campaign, and then you're going to have an ad group for each major product line or service that you offer. And then finally, it's going to ask you to create ads, and this is what the screen's going to look like. So for each ad group you've created, you now need to create at least one ad so that something is there to be served up by Google when somebody searches the keywords that you've established. So as you click new ad, this is what you're going to see. And again, just like the first one we did up front, this is kind of the fun part, right? Put your URL. This is where people are going to be driven to. Then play with your headlines a bit. You don't have a lot of characters. You can see on the screen, each of them has 30 characters. It's very limited. So you're trying to be smart and strategic about how you present your business. Display paths you can leave empty, and it will default to just your URL. If you want to get creative like we have here, you have 15 characters each to try and position a URL that looks like it would be fun to click on or looks inspiring to click on, something like that. And then you have 80 characters in your description. So as you can see on the screen looking at it, it's not a lot. So just play with that and make sure that you find something that seems compelling to you, and understand that you can create multiple ads, and then you can start looking at them and judging them and making sure that they work, seeing which ones work best and changing them as you go. Okay, you've created a campaign. In this case, we've created 2 ad groups, and we've created an ad in each ad group. There's 11 keywords against those 2 different ad groups, so everything's kind of set up, and this is the screen you're going to get taken to. It's going to say, here's the date range, here's the location, here's the language, the budget you're going to spend per day. The goal of your campaign is website traffic, and you're trying to maximize clicks. Get as many clicks as you possibly can for the money that you're spending. If all of that looks right, click Continue to Campaign. Now, similar to before, this campaign is going to go live immediately. So you've given them your credit card and you've gone through this whole deal. As soon as it's approved by Google, it's essentially live. If you didn't want it to be, or you wanted to add 5 more ads, then click on that green dot that says Enable, and you're going to see an option for pausing it. And once you click on that pause, that campaign is now no longer live until you go back and re-enable it. Okay. We're close up on time, but I'm not seeing questions, so I will go through this last section on how to grade your success with a couple tips. When you log into AdWords after your campaign is live, you're going to see an overview tab. This is where you're going to default land to. And that screen is going to show you that for the campaign you've got live now for a specific date range, here's the clicks you've achieved, here's the impressions you've got, your average cost per click, and the overall money you've spent. So that's the first thing you're going to see and you'll be able to take a look and see how the campaign is doing overall. Pardon me, I'm just going to take a sip of water. I know my voice is going on me here. All right. Now I have on these screens, I'm using some real numbers, so I've removed the client name. That's why you're seeing some black lines on the screen. The tab continues as you scroll down, so it doesn't stop there. As you scroll down your screen, you're going to see a ton of different options that you can play with. This is another screen that I highly recommend you just spend some time playing with. Click on it, poke around, change some settings, look at stuff, and just get a firm handle on how these things work. Because you're going to start finding out that it's really strong. You can go through and see on a date range ratio or a campaign ratio, or which keywords are sending the most clicks, which keywords have the best click-through rates, what are people searching for impression-wise, what keyword is served up most often. So you start getting a ton of information about your campaign. That's going to help you start figuring out where you could kind of reallocate your time and money to start getting greater success. Now, if you click the Ads and Extensions tab on that previous screen, you're going to get a holistic view at all of the ads you have in market for that specified time period. And this is where you can start looking to say, okay, well, I've got some ads whose cost per click is much, half some others. That's not always bad if you're getting really good traffic from the higher spend, but sometimes it tells you that, maybe I don't want to spend $1.28, maybe I want to spend 82 cents. So do I freeze that ad and move it to something else? Is there a way that I could take something from the ad with the lower cost per click, like a call to action or a headline, and make another ad that's going to blend both? It's going to be compelling, but it's also going to be less expensive. You can start playing on this screen to get an idea of which of your ads are driving the most impressions, clicks, click-through rates, which ones are costing you the most. It just gives you a one-stop look at all of the ads you have in market. You click the Keywords tab. This is where you're going to see all of the keywords that you bid on, and it's going to show you their clicks, impressions, click-through rate, and cost per click. Now, what you're looking for in this screen typically are high clicks, high click-through rate, and low cost per click. Those are your dream keywords, right? Those are the ones that you really want to get because they're driving, you're not spending as much, but they're driving high clicks. So you want those types of things, and then take those keywords. And remember when we went into Keyword Planner and we could say we wanted to forecast results for different keywords, or we wanted to use keywords to grow more, the very first option, use that. So in this case, if I look at the screen, I can see that, let's say Canadian recipes seem to be a decent one because it was driving a fair number of clicks with a decent click-through rate. I might take Canadian recipes back to Keyword Planner, just enter it in there, and try and grow more keywords that are like it, and see if I'm missing any from my existing keywords. And then I promised you guys a bit of a real-world example of how negative keywords work. So if you go through keywords, I'm going to actually go back one more slide, and say you're looking in here and something doesn't seem right, because we talked before, as part of your keyword bidding strategy, Google will sometimes serve your ads up for synonyms or misspellings or maybe similar words and phrases. And so in a real world example, clearly we're talking about a recipe-driven client that we had here. What ended up happening is that all of their recipes were meat-based. And because we didn't specify that, Google kind of just threw us in front of, let's say, vegan curry recipe. And obviously, if somebody searches vegan curry recipe, and then I pay $2 to get that click, that click's not relevant to me, right? They don't want my non-vegan recipe. So that's a perfect example where we go into the negative keyword option within Google AdWords, and we say, we do want to, broad match. We do want to be served up for curry recipes, but we never want to appear when somebody uses the words vegan or vegetarian, because it's not going to be relevant to us. It's not going to be relevant to them either, so we don't want them to see it. So hopefully that makes some sense about how a negative keyword works, where you're just telling Google, yeah, keep doing what you're doing, except here's a couple words or phrases that we really don't want our ad to appear for because we know it's a waste of our dollars. Google will show you demographics, so you're able to start seeing the age and gender of people who respond to your product and service, and you're able to start saying, are there specific age ranges or genders that do really well, or conversely do really poorly? And we'll go through it in a second. You can actually change how often your ads appear to different age ranges or gender ranges. And here's an example where you might exclude a demographic entirely. So let's say, for example, you don't want to reach people who are aged 18 to 24. They're just not an audience for your product or service. If you click on that green dot, the white dot next to them, and then click on the green, you have an option you can see there next to enable to exclude from ad group. If you click that, your ad will never appear to an aged 18 to 24 person again. It's that simple. And you're able to go through there. You're going to find as you go through AdWords that in most cases, placements, audiences, keywords, locations, you're able to use this feature to start really zeroing in on your potential client and excluding people that you're wasting money on. And that's the example here. So the click on the arrow next to the green dot trick works for almost all areas within AdWords. You could use it to pause an entire ad group. You could use it to pause one specific ad but leave all of the others live. You could use it to pause a specific keyword but leave all the others live. You could use it to remove a location but leave others. So as an example, if you are targeting York Region but you find that, say, Aurora just does not respond well to your ads, you could remove Aurora and leave the rest of York Region live within your ads. So in fact, the only area this likely won't work is if you want to stop desktop computer visitors but leave mobile and tablet or any combination thereof. For those, we need something called bid adjustments, which is our last slide, but I see a question here. How long should we keep the ad running before making a decision to change it or remove it? Minimum, a week, month, etc. Really good question. And it's totally dependent typically on the product or service, also the amount you're spending. Meaning, so if you had a very low budget and you were running this for a week, say you only had 100 clicks, then it may not be large enough to make a firm decision like that. I typically recommend for most people running an average campaign. I'm guessing most of the people I'm talking to here are going to run campaigns of about, your minimum is $250 or so a day, up to about $10 a day. If that's the area you're in, let your campaign go for a month and just let it run through. You can, by all means, go in every day and look at it and make sure you're happy with it. Sometimes you see something obvious. The example that I had a minute ago, but the vegan vegetarian, we figured that out within like 48 hours, and we knew we didn't want to wait any longer. So there will be things like that, but generally for a full campaign that you're going to leave running kind of for the next long future, I would say in most cases you want to let your campaign run for a month, then go in, give it a really good look over, make any major changes you need, and after that, it really probably is most likely every 2 weeks to a month afterwards to just keep on it. I do know people who go in every day, and then that's what they do. And if you were a large company and you hired a a search agency, the expectation is daily, but there's no necessarily right answer for everyone, but hopefully that helps. All right, we got 5 minutes and I got one section left here. I want to make sure I get you guys out of here like we promised. Bid adjustments allow you to show your ads more or less frequently based on where, when, and how people search. So, for example, sometimes a click is worth more to you if it comes from a smartphone, like our podcasters, or at a certain time of day, or from a specific location. Bid adjustments, this is literally the tip of the iceberg, this slide you're looking at, and it's a really easy real-world example, right? If you look at a podcaster, they clearly, people listen to podcasts on their phone. So this person did not want to spend money targeting people on their desktop computers or their tablets. So by clicking on those little blue, turning those little squares into blue check marks, I can click Edit Change Bid Adjustments, and I'm going to get brought to this screen here, where it's going to say, okay, for traffic from desktop computer and tablets, do you want to increase or decrease your bid? And what we did here is decreased our bid 100%. That means that if we have a $10 bid live, meaning we're willing to pay $10 for every click. By decreasing 100%, we're now willing to bid $0. That is similar. You can use that. Obviously, it doesn't have to be 100%. So if you have region we talked a minute ago, maybe Aurora doesn't perform as well. Maybe you just remove your bid down 20%, and you're willing to bid a little bit less for Aurora, and that's going to obviously help boost your other numbers and focus on those. You can also increase. If new market performs really well for you, maybe you're going to increase your bid in new market by 20% to put a bit more precedence on that. This section, guys, like everybody listening, spend some time on bid adjustments. Obviously, we didn't have enough time to go into it today, but it is once you get into Google AdWords, and again, the offer is always open. Email me, willing to help. But this is a very strong section to start tweaking your campaigns and making sure that your bids are accurate and working really hard for your business. With that, that is the end of the intro level Google search webinar. I hope it wasn't too complicated to propeller head, and I also hope I didn't speak too quickly, but it looks like I have only 2 minutes to spare, so I'll keep the screen live here, looking for a few last-minute questions, but failing all of those, I hope it was helpful. I hope you found it valuable. I will send you guys all an email in a moment with a link to any of the, you'll be able to download this presentation, and you'll be able to view the webinar again as well, live on YouTube. And other than that, we have one more in 2 weeks, the Building Your Business Online in 30 Minutes a Day. And for those of you who run everything in-house and you're responsible for your own search and social and any ads and so forth, hopefully that one will be valuable for you as well. You can find that sign up at loyalorder.com. And so no more questions coming in, so I think we've hit the end. My email is rick@loyalorder.com. Flip me any questions that come to mind afterwards. Oh, and here we have one. You have a comparison between Facebook and Google ad campaigns. Like comparison-wise, I don't have a presentation ready or anything. The main difference here would be, and we're talking, I'm assuming Google search ads, is that it's kind of two different types of things. So for most of the clients I work with on a daily basis, I'm doing both, because Google search is intent driven, right? People are looking for something in specific, and you are trying to appear in front of them for that. Whereas with Facebook and Instagram, I guess by comparison, you can target by interest, but someone's not really on Facebook saying, I'm looking for this local store, or I'm looking for a place that I can get this specific type of food. So you're using that to target people by interest, to create awareness, create interest in your product. As an example, I can give you a real world one from this week. We've got a client we were working with where we had a pretty large Facebook and Instagram campaign. And what we saw is, because we reached so many people with our Facebook ads, we saw our organic search go up significantly, I think more than double. And what was happening is people were becoming aware and then searching because they were interested. So the two are both important. If you are a local business and you're looking at both, I think you're going to need both, because neither one replaces the other. Just keep in mind that you're trying to drive that awareness and people becoming aware of you through your Facebook, Instagram, and then mostly trying to kind of target them by search term and kind of gather their interest and their click that way via Google search. Hopefully that answers that question. We're officially at 10 o'clock, so I guess I'll direct any other questions to come via email. You can also reply to the emails that I sent out about coming to this webinar. Thanks to everyone for coming. Hope again it was helpful, and appreciate everybody being here. And hopefully I'll see you again in a couple weeks. With that, I will stop sharing. Thanks, everyone. Take care.